dominate the UK domestic conveyancing market within a year. They could do the conveyancing, they could arrange all the lorries, so you haven't got lorries queuing up, waiting for hours. They could arrange key handovers, and frankly, they could arrange the finance as well. So should they want to, they could. And that's the level of competition that potentially over the next decade, we traditional lawyers face. Client expectations, talking about Amazon, we all as consumers and all of our clients, we're used to great choice, quick delivery, low prices, great service, all online, all using new technology to deliver it to us. And frankly, the way that most law firms deliver legal services is outdated. It's more like Dickens than Amazon. And law firms, frankly, over the next 10 years are going to have to move into the 21st century to keep up with that level of consumer client demand and expectation. Think Blockbuster and Netflix, or if you want a more recent example, think Boohoo and Debenhams. Boohoo, 2 days ago, paid £50 million for the Debenhams brand. Debenhams have been on the high street for 200 years. Another factor that we are all seeing every day of our lives, agile workforce. We're all working from home at the moment, but that home working is here to stay. Maybe not 5 days a week, but we're not going to go into the office 5 days a week going forwards, maybe 2, possibly 3 days a week. And that will lead to challenges which potentially we need to turn to technology to solve, keeping the team joined up and coordinated, knowing what each other's doing. How do we supervise our juniors if they're not actually sitting physically next to us or in meetings? And also to attract new talent, we're going to have to offer an agile workplace. We can't offer just an old crusty office anymore to the best talent coming through, because they don't want it. They want an agile future. Which leads us on to point 4, semi-virtual world. There simply will be fewer face-to-face meetings in the future. There will be, therefore, reduced high street footfall, which is going to impact on high street firms that rely on footfall. Every business on the planet is in the process of building back better following the pandemic. And that means less travel. It's on their agenda. So we need to invest in our visual, virtual presence. We need to perfect it. Clients are not going to tolerate poor broadband and dodgy cameras anymore and poor microphones. That's what we need to be investing in. Point 5, lawyers now trust tech. If 2 years ago I had gone to 1,000 lawyers in my firm and said, okay, well, next week you're all going to be working from home and you're all going to be relying on Zoom, WebEx, Teams, and you're all going to be linking 3 screens to your laptops at home, they would have laughed at me. Today, nobody laughs at that suggestion because it's happening. And we've got used to tech. We trust tech. We now realize we rely on tech. And when you're introducing tech into a business, timing is everything. 2 years ago, you couldn't talk to lawyers about them needing to rely on tech going forwards. Now, they know that they need to rely on it. Lastly, tech is cheaper to develop than it ever was before. It's quicker to develop than it ever was before. To create tech solutions, you no longer need to type code. You can use new building blocks, no-code building blocks. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And that's a good thing. That's a positive thing because it makes tech more accessible to us lawyers. It no longer costs £1 million to develop even the most basic tech solution. And there are also a lot of tech developer partners out there hungry to do deals and joint ventures with lawyers. So those are a few of the trends that we are already seeing. I mean, these aren't predictions. We're already seeing this happen, and more of it's going to happen over the next 10 years. So what sort of challenges do law firms face as a result of that? Well, there are different levels of awareness within law firms. Some law firms, some people I'm going to be speaking to right now already know all of this. To some, it's probably going to come as a bit of bit of a shock, but everybody in our profession needs to know what's on the horizon. But getting that message across is one thing. How the message is received is another. And I see a huge variety of mindset, attitude in our profession. We have some brave explorers who are excited by this, want to run with it, really looking forward to it. And then we have the dinosaurs who think they're big enough and bad enough they can see the asteroid coming towards them, but they think they're big enough to survive it. Well, they're not. Then you get the rabbits. They know that change is coming, but they haven't got a clue what to do about it. They're frozen. And the ostriches, well, they just deny that change is happening. It's only the explorers that are going to survive in the new order. And a conservative approach. We lawyers, we tend to be conservative. Change is not our natural state. But, you know, when you're standing in the middle of a motorway and a truck is driving towards you, doing nothing isn't actually the safest option. And those lawyers will lose clients and they will lose their workforce. They'll lose talent. Knowledge, there's different levels of knowledge in our industry, and some smaller firms just don't have the access to knowledge or the contacts, relevant contacts that they'll need going forward. And that's a barrier that we in Supertech definitely want to break down and make tech accessible at all levels of law firm size. Again, capacity, different law firm sizes means that some just don't have dedicated resource to deal with legal tech. So we need to help those firms to know what's available, what's cost effective, and help them make choices where to go over the next 10 years. And perhaps we're going to see, I know this is pushing on the edges a little bit, but perhaps we're going to see greater small law firm collaboration, because they're no longer actually competing with each other. They're competing with complete new entrants, new law entrants. Cost, well, some firms have deeper pockets than others. So again, maybe that's going to lead to more collective collaboration, joint ventures with software developers, joint ventures with clients. We're starting to do joint ventures with clients to develop new products. And maybe even larger firms will start to license their products to the smaller firms, bearing in mind we don't really compete for the same clients. So point 6, in summary, I think quite a few firms out there, possibly particularly the smaller firms, would be really surprised about how much is already being done in the legal tech space. And that separation, that gap is increasing because the rate of change is increasing all the time. So I guess what we want to do in Supertech, and partly through this conference, is this is a bit of a call to action. And the great thing is, you know, that's all very scary, but I firmly believe that we lawyers, we traditional lawyers, are the best placed on the planet to thrive going forwards. We know our clients better than new law entrants do. We know about legal provision, legal service provision better than they do. We ought to be able to thrive above them, even though we haven't got the deepest pockets. But if we're going to thrive, we've got to start working and doing a lot of work now. So I've got some thoughts, just personal thoughts, on the areas that law firms ought to be concentrating on over the next few years. 4 areas: internal efficiency, client products, offerings to clients, the fact that you've got an agile workforce going forwards, and the fact that you've got agile clients going forwards. And there's a 5th ingredient, which I'll come on to at the end. Internal efficiency, well, I think all law firms to greater or lesser extents have been trying to get more efficient. That's been happening anyway, and they need to do that to obviously get their costs at an optimal level to remain efficient. And I've just listed a few legal tech products here. This is no endorsement, by the way. I'm not trying to sell any of these products, but these are just ones that I've personally come across, and they seem to work very well. Document checking, okay? So you can put a document through a piece of software. It will check the cross references, it will check and automatically correct them. It'll check your definitions and automatically correct them. We reckon it will save at least 1 hour of human time per document that we process. Now you work that out in any law firm, that adds up to a big saving. Document automation, well, you all know about that. Contract Express and Evoca are a couple of great products that we've seen there. AI contract analysis. Now this really is a game changer. So you can put a 60-page contract through this, and I've seen it in 18 seconds, it can mark that contract up with the amendments required. That type of software, it's not easy to build. It took us 2 years to build ours, but that sort of software can save you 3 to 4 hours of work per contract, and that's a massive saving. But it's not all about internal efficiency. You can be the most optimally efficient business on the planet, but it doesn't guarantee survival. Blockbuster was amazingly efficient, but it wasn't focused in the right direction. It was too inward looking. And that leads me on to the next area of focus for law firms, client products. Clients are not getting innovative products from their lawyers. Lawyers are focusing all on the internal efficiency piece, but we're not generally offering enough products to clients, and we need to. But it's not about products for product's sake. It's not about tech for tech's sake. You have to be solving a genuine problem that the client has. Also, data capture is a huge part of the next decade. We all know the value of data. Without data, by the way, you can't train AI platforms. AI doesn't work out of the box. You have to spend time training it with correct data before it becomes intelligent and usable. So data capture, and then playing that data back to clients in thought leadership, how your client's risk profile is increasing over time, how your client's risk profile compares with that of the whole market. That's real value that you can add back to your clients if you're capturing the data. And there are some great tools available now to start building these products for clients. I mentioned no code. There's a software system called Bubble. Check it out. You can, free of charge, sign up to a trial of Bubble, and it's like building software using Lego bricks. It's really interesting, and Brighter as well is a kind of decision tree software solution, really easy to use. Let's go on to the third piece of the jigsaw, the agile workforce. We all face this now. Going forwards, who knows? Half office, half home. I think that's probably going to be the way it gravitates out. But it's really important within your firms to agree with your workforce. What is the way forward? Be certain about it, because so much hangs off that. How you're going to configure your office space hangs off how much time everybody's going to be in the office. What software you need hangs off how much home working there's going to be. Keeping the team joined up, well, we've all been using Zoom and Teams and Outlook, etc. But going forwards, there are much more sophisticated collaboration tools that lawyers can use to keep joined up and mark up documents collectively, assist with supervision. And obviously, we've all heard of HighQ. It's a powerful generic product, but take a look at Hoylu. I mean, Hoylu just takes collaboration software to a whole new level. It's off the scale. And I mentioned earlier, professionalize your virtual image. You spend half your life now seen by others on your computer screen. If you haven't already, sort your broadband out, buy the best camera you can, buy the best microphone you can, sort your background out, tidy up your home office. It matters. The fourth part of the jigsaw, agile clients. In the same way that our workforce is agile, so are your clients going to be agile going forward. They will not be all in the same place themselves. And they are getting bored. They are getting a bit bored with this Zoom, Teams, WebEx format, you know, people's faces in boxes. And they are keen to see newer, more exciting, more useful interfaces. And again, you've all heard of HighQ, no doubt, but check out Prezi. Prezi is one of the most incredible presentation softwares that I've ever seen. We're certainly trialing it at the moment. It will take things to a different level. And, you know, a lot of people see the fact that we're engaging less face-to-face with clients as a disadvantage. There are things you can achieve virtually that you can't achieve face-to-face. And I think that's the really exciting thing, giving the client a better experience through a semi-virtual world rather than a compromised experience. Okay, look, I'm running out of time. Those were my thoughts on the four main areas that law firms need to focus on, but I'll leave you with the fifth piece of the puzzle, the most important piece, which is our people. You know, tech is a tool for people to use. It's not there to replace people. The only lawyers that are going to get replaced by tech are the ones that behave like robots. They will get taken over by robots. But those lawyers that add value above pure law, above pure process, those that empathize, encourage, and support their clients, those that can read a room and negotiate, know when to push, know when to concede, those are the skills actually that will differentiate traditional law firms from new law going forwards. New law won't offer that. We can, but that means we need to be promoting those skills in our people. And there's a movement, you've probably heard of the O-shaped lawyer movement. It's being led by a guy called Dan Kane. He's a great guy. He's GC at, sorry, I do National Rail. And he is just amazing. And he's, you know, it's all about building these skills in lawyers to make them the full piece, the rounded lawyer, the O-shaped lawyer. Last point I want to make is that innovation isn't all about technology. It's all about creativity. It comes from humans. And so at the end of the day, your biggest asset is always going to be your people. Just invest in developing them now in the right way. So I'm going to end there again with the call to action and encouragement to say that, you know, we do face challenges, but I still firmly believe that we traditional lawyers are the best people on the planet to rise to that challenge. We just need to start addressing these areas. And if you're not addressing them already, start now. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Matthew.
Thanks, Tony. Superb as always. And some great points. I was so busy scribbling, I've run out of paper. So we'll address some of my notes and questions and the questions of the audience after the 3 sessions in this part. So now, brilliant. Thanks, Tony. So now we're moving on to Richard Elson. So Richard is the IT director at the international law firm Trowers and Hamlins LLP, serving on both the firm's board and executive committees, ensuring that IT and business strategy are developed together to ensure perfect alignment. In total, Richard has 20 years leadership experience in the UK and international professional services operations. And he takes a commercially, business-driven and strategic approach to successful IT governance and development, collaborating extensively with business stakeholders to deliver solutions and business efficiencies. So my note there was, so Richard is very much more than just a technical guru. He understands strategy. So looking forward to his session. So handing over to yourself, Richard. Oh, Richard, that classic line needs to be uttered. You're on mute.
I thought you were doing that. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Sorry. Yeah, we can hear you now. Brilliant. Sorry for that.
Thank you. Great to be part of the conference. And Tony, there was some fantastic stuff that you covered there earlier. And definitely some points in what I want to cover that mirror some of the things you were saying. So I'm not going to use any slides today. Actually, it's just me and my lockdown beard, I'm afraid. Anyone that read the short biography of me might have picked out that I did some work in the past in the manufacturing sector. And that's not typically something that you see particularly often in professional services firms. We can't travel at the moment, so what I want to do is invite you to play a little mind game here. And we're going to do an imaginary time travel, actually not to the future, to the past, because sometimes there are indications from the past and things that you've seen and done that can really help look at what you're doing to gear your firm up for the future. So I invite you to join me now to get into the silver DeLorean with Professor Doc Brown, and we're going to go all the way back to Britain in the 80s. Okay. Manufacturing in Britain in the 80s, post-recession, needed to be much, much more efficient. And to Tony's point about competitors, it was clear that the Asian competitors, particularly Japanese manufacturers, were wiping the floor with British industry. And at the time, computers were just being introduced in some factories. And I ended up spending what turned out to be 3 years in a design and manufacture organization. They did very, very high-end furniture for C-suite executive banks, government offices. And they were doing pretty well, but they had a bunch of issues to address. They hired a new MD, and he had come in to implement 2 completely new methods of organizing design and manufacturing, but particularly manufacturing. And there were 2 methodologies that we're implementing. One was called materials requirements planning. So that's a decision-making tool, how you organize your production processes, basically understanding what it takes to deliver that the production of that product. It looks at your availability of resources and capacity, et cetera, and it designs a process to make that more efficient, in short. Alongside that, there was something called JIT, J-I-T, just-in-time manufacturing. Essentially, that was the idea there, was to ensure that you knew everything about what it was you were designing and producing, so that you would keep minimum stock. You would just have enough. And this is one of the reasons why the Brexit uncertainty was such a problem for the likes of Jaguar Land Rover. But basically, they've engineered out all of the inefficiencies, and everything happens like clockwork. As soon as you get something like Brexit into that process, it completely derails the process. And that's pretty much why they shut for a period of a couple of weeks. They're so tightly organized about the way they run their organization that anything like Brexit, it was just too much of an unknown. So what they did, they bought as many parts as they could and did as much manufacturing as they could, but because of the supply uncertainty, they stopped. And these methods were developed and perfected by the likes of Toyota. And the new MD of this manufacturing organization had seen them. So I was part of the task force. I was effectively a programmer, what's known as a coder now. And our job was to look at the issues that they were finding in the factory. Basically, they were classic problems. They didn't really know the extent of the orders they had coming in. They didn't know how long it took to make them. They didn't really know how profitable each production run was. And they didn't really know what resources they needed in terms of time and people and products to deliver the end order. And the effects were sometimes, for example, that the production line would stop because they would have to wait for something to be delivered to be part of that production run. Could be just widgets or whatever. And the other one was that they ended up running expensive overtime at weekends and evenings to meet production needs, again, because they just didn't really have that level of predictability. So what we had to do was we had to work with the people in the factory and understand what was in the products, how long it took to make, and the cost of the people and delivery times. And we ended up putting all these into an MRP system. And during this process, what we discovered was things that perhaps we didn't expect. Like, you could move the manufacturing line, parts of the line around to be more efficient. Just the order of doing things could be improved. With that level of control over stock, we could actually change part of the stock holding areas and turn them into production lines. So basically, we got more production from the same physical unit. We ended up working on those 2 projects for about 3 years. And part of the thing that surprised me most was that how upset people got at having to use a computer. They'd never used one before, and they got pretty cross about this. And the other thing that we had to do is we had to sort of cut people's overtime, because they got used to effectively managing their finances around running this overtime because the unit was inefficient. On the other hand, the organization was more efficient, they were making more money, and they had happier customers because the products were delivered on time. Okay, we're going to go back in the DeLorean now, and we're going to travel all the way back to where we are now, and traditional law firms. So one of the things that Tony touched on was how these new startups, and they're operating completely different models. They're basically coming from a pre-engineered efficiency model, delivering products into our clients, or potentially into our clients. And what I think law firms, traditional law firms, have proven is that while they're tech enabled, what they are not doing at the moment is thinking from a product perspective, and to those lessons in manufacturing, learning all the inefficiency parts of the process and re-engineering them for efficiency and success, and of course, profitability. And my experience in traditional law firms, 5 of them now, is that core technologies like document management and the services around that, incredibly sophisticated, really, really well run, essentially state of the art. But there are other areas that are not yet in traditional law firms. There's the automation of legal processes. There's bits and pieces. As the profitability management as part of matter management, not mature. And resource management is probably the area that's least mature. Basically, work comes in, it gets done, and people work late if they have to. I remember talking to an MLA partner at one of my prior firms, and I was talking about a system we were planning to implement in a couple of years. And he said to me, this was over a glass of wine in an event, and he said, "Your problem, Richard, is you need to plan ahead." Well, we are, I'm afraid, glorified plumbers. Basically, clients have a problem, they call us, we fix them, and we have no idea what the problems are going to be. We can't forecast them, we just have to get on with it. Okay, well, maybe. But I think that to Tony's point, not just from the competition side, but also from the cost of doing business side. So for example, in the compliance, 10 years ago, what firms did around compliance and, new business intake, management of identity authentication, all those things, they really were very kind of inefficient and laborious processes. They've become more efficient, but the technologies are quite costly. And the cost of doing that compliant business has gone up. Clients also want fixed price work, and they want, this is a bit of a dichotomy, they want the fixed price work to be done by the same partners they've come to know and love. Obviously, partners are expensive. So work is typically now often being done at too expensive a rate. And probably the biggest challenge is that in this attempt to re-engineer these things, it's lawyers themselves that need to be involved.